everybody. Welcome to This Week in Android. I'm your host, Ashley Esqueda, and I have my fantastic author co-host, official author today.
That's right. I'm finally a real author. I got my first check.
Yes, very exciting. That was an exciting moment.
Congrats.
And we also have our in-studio guest co-host, Barb Dybwad. Thanks for coming today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me down.
Barb's a writer with Mashable, so we should point that out as well.
Yeah.
One of the premier internet sites. And later we have Drew Olanoff from
Text Plus.
I was going to say Text Plus, and also the internet sensation, Blame Drew's Cancer.
He has his own sensation going on, which has nothing to do with Text Plus.
But still awesome. Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. This Week in Android, lots of different stuff.
Well, I mean, the first thing I was going to bring up is actually I was talking with a friend of mine over the last week or so, who just got an Android, and she was telling me that that a rogue app had made it somehow onto her desktop, or not her phone top anyway, and had started basically chewing through the rest of her operating system and other apps. So it's the first time I've heard of that happening. Have you heard of this happening before?
I haven't heard of that happening either. The first thing I would ask is, did she loan her phone to anyone?
She's not sure how it happened, and she's not like the kind of person that would, be stupid. She's technically aware of things, so
yeah.
She's not quite sure how it got onto her phone, but it basically it surfaced an interesting question in my head, which was, how secure is the Android platform versus the iPhone, or the other phones, obviously. But the other thing that popped in my brain was there was a story a while back about the Nook being easily rooted and hacked. Basically, people were getting around the DRM and all that stuff pretty easily on the Nook, which obviously I haven't really heard anybody doing that on the Kindle.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that on the Kindle.
I'm wondering if this is, so you haven't, in your travels, you haven't heard much about Android being a lot more hackable, or?
No, well, I mean, I think you have sort of a trade-off between the very closed and controlled system that Apple runs with the iPhone, where it's very much locked down, as opposed to Android, which is a lot more open, which is, both a little bit of a blessing and a curse. You can sort of do a lot more, do whatever you want on it, but the flip side is there probably will be a few more security issues, although I hadn't heard anything specifically about phones being rooted and then eating up the apps.
That was the first time I heard that too. And but the security guys will say obfuscation does not make things more secure. So one of the arguments for open platforms and open systems is that, people will say this, that, an open system is more hackable because it's open, so everyone knows how it works. And the counter argument to that from security people is that you shouldn't make your security dependent on whether it's open or not. You should use other mechanisms to make your encryption, et cetera, to make your system secure. Right. So I don't.
But if she doesn't know how she got it on her phone, then you have to kind of wonder how. Maybe the openness of the marketplace and the availability of apps outside of the official Android market might open the door to some, really kind of shady backdoor apps that are malicious. But I don't know. It'll be an interesting thing to see if that.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard of this, and I don't know how widespread it is, or whether.
But if you're hearing from it from one friend, and then there's someone else who hears, it could be. Obviously it's not a huge problem, but I'd imagine for one person that tells their friend and you don't hear it from anybody else, there's probably at least a couple hundred other people who've experienced that.
Yeah, and if there's anyone in the chat room who's heard of anything like this, obviously we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
And I also, the Nook thing was an official story. I know that was real. And
I think that was less about malicious, hacking though, and more about, let's try to get more out of this device. Let's see what it can do under the hood, kind of thing. Yeah. As opposed to, let's get in there and hack the device.
If I remember the article right, they were trying to free the books of the DRM protection.
Right. Yeah.
So, in that sense, it would be actually hacking.
That makes sense.
So tell me, what have you been seeing over these last few weeks in the Android universe that's really interesting to you?
Well, actually, just before I left the house, I saw a story on Engadget that an FCC approval popped up for a version of the Nexus 1 that's a CDMA version. So probably all signs are pointing to, within the next couple of months, we'll see the Nexus 1 come to Verizon.
Oh, wow.
But is that,
I think would be cool.
Now let me ask you, I had heard two differing stories, which was one that the Nexus One itself had been approved CDMA, and then I heard that the software and the hardware itself of the Nexus One, so not necessarily the Nexus One, but a version of that would sort of be like a new phone, but basically the same thing.
I mean, it's basically going to be the same phone. It's just going to have a different chip in it to allow it to use that network.
Do you think that this is the storied the Incredible that they're talking about? They've been signs of a new phone called the Incredible in Verizon's.
I wouldn't be surprised
databases.
if those turn out to be different devices. We know that Verizon's doing a heck of a lot with Android. They're going to be launching a number of handsets. I would think it would be perhaps odd if they had a trade name for a device that already exists. So, I mean, we'll see. The more the merrier. I hope it's a different device.
Yeah, no kidding. We were talking about the availability of different devices and how they really each one of them speaks to a different type of person in terms of usability, looks. I mean, functionality. Some of them have keyboards, some of them don't. I mean, it's really amazing the breadth and general differentiation that we're seeing for all Android phones.
Which I think is, again, one of the benefits of Android versus something like iPhone, where it's sort of one size fits all. I mean, you could choose between 3G or 3GS, but that's about it.
That's it. It's the same OS.
Yeah, so this is much more, you can find a device tailored to whatever you need in terms of a physical form factor and then customize it however you want. So.
Which is great. And the more the merrier, better for the user.
Yeah, we have a comment from the chat room. TWiA says, some friends have Nexus 1s down here in New Zealand, now on Vodafone and Z, parallel imports. Wish I could afford one. My HTC Magic will have to do for now. So where do you stand? Do you have what is your phone, Barb? I'm just curious. Do you have an Android device yourself?
All right, let's bust it out here, because this
do you have something else?
It's actually kind of ridiculous. Right now I've got the iPhone, which I bought for myself.
Yeah.
I've got the Droid.
Oh, so you're like me. I've got the same thing.
Which I also bought for myself. And I was just at the TED conference a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you did not get one of those.
And Google sprung this on all of us, and it was very rough. I had to accept it.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, last week at TED, which is this giant conference, only for important people.
Yeah,
Barb's important.
And me. I don't know. They made an exception.
No, Barb's important.
Oh, yep.
They basically did like an Oprah thing where they gave everyone in the audience Nexus 1s just gratis. Which is a smart move. I mean, it's a brilliant move, because these are all the influencers and the people who are going to come on this show and talk about it.
Use it, love it, tell your friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and these are all the influential people who are going to who have a platform in which to tell people how much they like the product. So, you're triple phoning it right now. Like, that's incredible. I have one. I feel so insignificant right now. I have like one phone. I'm like, I only have one phone. Sorry, I'm just not nearly as cool as the two of you.
But you're not spending nearly as much on data service.
That's true. Yeah, that is very true.
There's that. So
now,
I'm very fortunate for that.
So you're a frequent user of both Android and iPhone. I suspect you probably got your iPhone first.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Then the Droid, obviously. Then you just, like, literally a week ago, got the Nexus 1.
Yeah.
What do you like the best? What's your favorite phone?
I tend to put it like this. If I go out of the house and I'm only going to take one phone, I will still pretty much by default take my iPhone, which is also sort of a practical thing. Most people have that
That's the number people have, right.
And I haven't really gone through the steps to sort of change it over. Although I do have a Google Voice number now that rings both. But I haven't really integrated the Nexus 1 yet. However, if I leave the house with two phones, I take the Nexus 1 and the iPhone. And
Interesting.
The Droid has been sort of
relegated to the second.
Sitting back at home, which that's a function.
But what is it about? I mean, like for me, if I had to choose between the Droid and the Nexus 1, I'd pick the Nexus 1 just for the form factor. It's smaller, it's thinner, it's easier to slip into a pocket.
It's sexier.
And it's much sexier. Yes, let's all just be honest.
It is indeed.
And it's running 2.1, and it's got some features that you still can't get on the Droid.
Right.
Some of the like the active wallpaper you can't run on the Droid yet. Google Earth just came out this week,
I read about
which is
that.
another interesting thing, which doesn't have a Droid version just yet. So There's a few things. It's also a function of it being, the shiny new
toy,
thing,
sure.
So.
But who doesn't love shiny toys?
Do you care about the keyboard?
Yeah.
I don't love the keyboard on the Droid. I like that it's there as an option. I used to be a very staunch keyboard person, and I had a lot of trios back in the day, and I very much loved the tactile sense of the keyboard. And it took me a while actually to get used to the iPhone virtual keyboard. But once I got up to speed with it, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I had the
You're
same reaction.
saving a lot of real estate there. It's nice to have it with the Droid, but I rarely use it.
I can't use a keyboard, every show I bring this up, but
see, and I'm very much like I'm a hard keyboard. I've got to have a keyboard. A physical keyboard is like I got to have one, and maybe it's because I personally have not found the right phone yet to like really make me kind of break that habit, because I have an iTouch, and I use the internet on that a lot of the time. But the thing is it's just the feel of the keys. I guess it would be the same thing as saying I prefer books, like physical books, to something like a Kindle, because I have to be able to flip through the pages and I have to feel it. So
I thought, did you ever buy a Kindle?
I've borrowed one from a friend.
Because it's an Android show,
I don't
so
have one,
also.
but I've borrowed one from a friend.
Okay, so you didn't really, then you tried to read on it and you just kind of went, nah.
I had it for about a week and I was just like, I can't, like, it's just not just not the same experience. I'm a big, like, it's an experience when I read a book.
I'm the same way. I'm big on books, as you know. Yeah. So I thought I'd react poorly to it, and actually I had exactly the inverse reaction. I suddenly stopped buying paper books. Oh. For several reasons. One, you can download the first chapter of any book for free out of the air. I mean, that was just amazing, just alone. And then plus the books cost between like $6 and $9. Which is versus like 15 to 22.
15 to 25.
Yeah, no.
Right? Yeah, for now.
we know they're getting us hooked on the book drug, and then they're gonna like jack up the price down the road.
Well, there's that whole price war going on now too between what was the Hugh Macmillan, I think.
Yeah. It is Macmillan.
Yeah, about we want to have the prices up at $14.99 and do sort of the same thing we do with retail, where we stage it down over time. And
where they like, we don't want to just start out the gate at $9.99. We want people to pay a premium for being first in line to have it. You can have it.
And then they had that fight with Amazon, where it was sort of like, well, now that the iPad is in town, move over, Amazon. We've got a bargaining chip here. So we'll see.
You don't think the Nook is a viable threat to the Kindle in the same way the iPad is?
It doesn't seem like it. I mean, I think definitely the tablet form factor is going to subsume a lot of the market that otherwise would have been buying an e-reader device. I mean, an e-reader, the thing that it has going for it is it's got that great battery life, and if you really only want to do reading, it's a lot easier on the eyes. On the other hand, the trade-off is you don't get to play back video. You don't get color, at least for now, and probably for a little while. Yep. And I mean, I can see, if I were a college student right now looking to consolidate instead of carrying around all my books,
book bag,
I would much rather have an iPad than a Kindle DX. And there's a cool factor too. I mean, those kids are, they're gonna want to have the Apple shiny.
They're gonna want the Apple.
They're gonna want something sexy.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like the iPad's really limited. Like the lack of flash, and no USB ports, and for me, like it's not for me, but like it is just very sexy, and I can't deny that. I can't take that away from Apple. They make sexy, sexy products.
They do. I agree with you though. Actually, I'm a little bit. For me, it's not going to be the right device. Right. I'm going to be waiting for one of the umpteen Android tablets.
Now, are any of those available yet? Because I keep trying to buy them. And actually, we spoke about this like on a previous show. And after the show, I went and talked with Jason Kalkanis. We said, let's buy some for the office, just so we can experience the magic. And I went out and tried to buy them, and none of them are available.
They're not out yet, but we just got word that there's going to be one shipping on March 1st, which is the Haleron iLet Mini, which is a 7-inch tablet running Android, but it's running Android 1.6, so it's not the latest.
We'd be able to upgrade that, or?
I mean, I imagine they'd be able to do some sort of firmware
they must be able to,
update. Yeah, and that's going to be shipping March 1st for $199, which
less
really
than the Kindle.
handily beats the price point of the iPad.
Yeah.
Well, it beats the price point of the Kindle.
Yeah, well,
the Kindle's like
that
$250.
too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's insane if that's true.
I mean, if that ships at that price point, and they're going to get a head start I would say that's a great idea for them to get a head start and release it at that one. I really think that right now, in terms of technology, $199 is like the magic number.
Yeah.
You know, PlayStation 3 had such a hard time selling units until they dropped the price down. And basically everyone's like, you know, it's right in that $200 range when you really start seeing your user base just start screaming up toward the sky. And I think that something like a tablet for $199 is something that's going to be really consumer friendly, especially in this economy. I mean, so many of my friends, they're like, I want an iPad so bad, I can't pay, you know, $800 for the highest end model. I have, you know, all my tech friends, they want to have the best one. And they're like, I can't afford, you know, $800, $900 for this. You know, I'd rather just go buy a new MacBook. And I'm like, well, that's a fair argument. I can't argue with you on that. But I definitely think that $199 is like the magic number right now in terms of purchasing. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, we need to get a good look at the device, and you know, there's been a few of these tablets that people have had hands-on with, and they've said, oh, there's some performance issues, you know, it might be a little bit sluggish, and then Haleron, who's ever heard of Haleron?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Right, yeah.
The new one
so
on me.
They're going to be battling sort of uphill to get name recognition, but...
They come out first with an Android tablet, they got name recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
they'll get it real fast.
That's the way to make a splash, for sure.
Yeah.
So we should probably see if... do we have Drew on the line? Ready to go? Okay.
Oh, we do? All right. Hey, look, it's Drew in there.
Oh, wait, we have to do our little segment over. Do we have a little segment over? No?
Let's do...
I know, Drew's like, what are we talking about?
Just like, I'm so confused.
We have a little app. Star treatment.
All right, it's time for App of the Week. And this week, we have Drew Olanoff showing us Text Plus.
I thought you were saying I was the app of the week. I was like, that would be quite a feat.
You are the app of the week.
Drew is his own app. He's that important.
No, the company I work for, Goji, we do Text Plus, which is a app that lets you text for free and have group conversations.
Now, so can you show us a little demo? Are you able to sort of hold up your phone and walk us through it just a little bit?
I had to leave my Nexus 1 at the office.
For Drew! Oh, man.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, you don't carry it with you everywhere you go?
That thing is in, that's a commodity in the office.
I was going to say, is it like in lockdown? It's like in a little glass case.
Yeah, strapped down.
Do not touch unless developing.
Pretty much.
Okay.
It looks much like the iPhone version. So, I mean, I know this is This Week in Android, but I'll hold it up. Basically, you know, just like texting, you have your screens. But the difference being you can have a group conversation. And when I say group conversation, I don't mean texting 10 different people at once, which you can do right now. What I mean is texting 10 different people, and then when someone replies, everybody gets the response, whether they have the application or they don't have the application.
Now,
so
does it do threaded conversations with text messaging?
So yeah, so basically you will get a text message, you get a regular SMS. Say you're not on Android, you're on just a regular, you know, flip phone. You're old school. You know, you're kicking it old school. You can get invited to a conversation from someone using the app, and you will see, you know, everyone's nickname scrolling up, and if everybody's having a bunch of conversations, it's gonna hit up your text.
So now, I actually have the app here on my Android. I downloaded it last night as soon as Drew graciously agreed to appear last minute. We had a cancellation.
Yes, thank you
for
coming in.
For saving us. We'd be sitting here looking rather silly at the moment if you hadn't agreed to come on. But anyway, so I did download the app, and I started playing around with it. And I noticed that it from what I can see, it appears to be, on the Android side, integrated with Gmail. Because it's basically looking through, when I say add contacts, I believe it's pulling the right.
You can pull, yeah, it absolutely, both versions. So the one for Android and the one for iPhone, it's pulling from your built-in contacts. So you can text to, text to whatever numbers in your contact list. And we just added Canadian support. So, if you're on an iPod Touch, you're on an iPhone, and now you're on an Android, you can text Canada for free using only Wi-Fi.
Very nice.
And now, if I have the iPhone version, will it only populate for my contacts on the iPhone, or is there a way that it magically goes out to my Gmail and populates from that as well?
Those are things that we're working on right now. It only pulls in from native contacts. So Same for the iPod Touch.
So just to be clear, the reason why my Android device is populating from Gmail because the Android device natively populated my contact list from Gmail. So that's why. So it's not actually going. Your app is not actually going to Gmail at all. It's just going to my local.
It's going local, which is pulling from your Gmail.
Okay.
I was going to say, so in terms of syncing contacts and finding people to chat with, I'm curious as to whether or not you guys have looked into. And again, I know this is. I'm gonna paraphrase you again and say I know this is This Week in Android, but I'm actually curious as to whether or not you guys have considered doing a WebOS port where the Facebook integration, there's instant Facebook integration, Gmail, all that stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So we listen to our. So my role at Goji is director of community, and that may sound goofy, but I'm the one who talks to all of our users and kind of prioritizes things. So we launched the iPhone and iPod Touch last June, and when we asked our users what they wanted, and we saw what was coming, the Android devices were coming. People wanted it on other platforms. We have a BlackBerry beta team. So, you know, we're looking to get on multiple devices and definitely more integration. And people ask for the web version, and when people are loud enough, we listen. So that was the Canadian support we rolled out. People wanted to text Canada. So there we go.
Canadians can be very angry.
What's that?
They seem like, you know, after the Olympics, they seem like a very angry people. No, I'm just kidding. They're totally like the most docile, nice, kind people ever. So I can't imagine they'd be like screaming with pitchforks and torches at your door going, we need Text Plus.
Well, actually, one of the features that we're going to be porting over from the iPhone soon to Android is communities. So basically, you can name a community like there's one for Canadian hockey. And you can text that unique name to 60611 and join it from any phone. But they're pretty angry. They're actually really pretty angry.
Well, hockey fans in general are enraged. I mean, that's just
hockey.
That's hockey. That's a totally separate thing.
Yeah. So, for example, anybody out there, whether they have the app or not, they can text dogs to 60611. And 60611, think about it, our company's name is Goji, Gogii, so 60611. That's that tricky there. So dogs to 60611, and from SMS can join a community and join a group conversation and see how it works for someone not using the app.
Cool. Very cool.
So is there a directory? Is it of groups outside of your friends that you can join? Is that one of the appeals? Or?
So we haven't really delved into the social end of it as of yet. I mean, we're playing around with things and we're getting feedback. But right now, the communities for us, they're discoverable, and you can join a community. You can invite your friends, or you can just type in a name of a community. Or for, like, example, dogs, I can put that anywhere. I can post that on my locker or whatever, and, you know, if I were still in school. But since I'm old, I'm not. But, yeah, so that's kind of how we're going about it now. Kind of the discovery, the word of mouth has been great for us. I mean, our users are pushing 5 million text messages a day. You know, we had a record the other day, 6.6 million text messages sent. Wow. So it's been pretty crazy, but awesome.
A lot of people having a conversation. That's good. That's great.
Huge.
Yeah. So if you think of the group conversation, think of it as like reply all on email, but for text.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Very cool.
Totally got it.
You can just see like a group full of people sitting at a dinner table all in a conversation. Text Plus, like not speaking to each other.
I have seen that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we use it at work. Even though there's like one office with like 20-something people in there, we still speak over.
The guy next to you is like, Drew, dude, seriously, I'm in the next cubicle. You can just come over and talk to me. It's fine.
Exactly. But that's how we do it.
Cool. Well, is there anything in terms of? Well, actually, I'm really curious. The communities and the discussions that you guys have, are they user generated? So if I were to just type in anything, like let's say, you know, This Week in Android, and on your end, that community did not exist. If I were to send a text message, would it then create a new community, or would that just be, would it be sort of an invalid chat?
It would be invalid. You would have to create it, someone using the app would have to create it. But,
okay, I understand.
You know, we're working. Actually, the way we started, Goji started, was a website. Then it was all an SMS. I mean, there was no app involved, and we were one of the first members of the iFund, which was a Kleiner Perkins fund to create iPhone apps. So now we've done the apps, and we're kind of bringing it all back in together with menuing systems and things like that. But for right now, we're keeping it in an app, and it's fun, and we're still learning the nuances of Android. There are a lot of them, and it's really cool.
Well, I'm dying to ask about
please.
Okay,
absolutely.
So, for those of you who are unaware, Drew is sort of an internet celebrity of some sort. There's sort of a meme that happened on Twitter, and it's called "Blame Drew's Cancer." And Drew, I would love it if you explained a little bit about this, because when Mark told me about this, I was like, I have to ask. Like, I'm dying to hear more about it. So please, like, indulge me in, if you will, and tell me a little bit about Blame Drew's Cancer.
Sure, actually, and it ties into what I'm doing now. Last year, I was looking for jobs, going around looking for a new gig, and I noticed a lump on the side of my neck, and I got the job at Goji, and I went home to Philadelphia and visit family and stuff before I started the new job. I went to the doctor and said, "Hey, what's this lump on my neck? Can we get rid of that?" And got some blood work. I had cancer, so I did what any geek would do, and I started a website, and I wanted to do something that could create awareness. It wasn't about me. It was about building awareness about cancer. People are uncomfortable. People were saying, I'm sorry to hear about what's happening. And I'm like, what? Cancer? Like, say it, say the word.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the best way to do it was to do a unique thing on Twitter. I hashtag blame Drew's cancer for whatever you want. My cancer was blamed for Nickelback. It was blamed for...
Well, that's true.
The weather, other people's illnesses, Twitter being down all the time, all kinds of things. And we raised a bunch of money and took it to another level by auctioning off my username on Twitter, which used to be Drew, to Drew Carey. And so he's pledged $1 million to Live Strong.
Very cool.
It's a great foundation. So the internet is a wonderful place.
It can be. I don't know if I don't think 4chan would agree with you, but I definitely. And by the way, if you don't know what 4chan is, don't go there. But yeah, it can be. So many like great stories like that come out of the internet that I can't completely write it off as soulless and hopeless.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
Far from that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. I mean, And I can understand exactly how you would feel in terms of, you're young. So, and a lot of people just think cancer's for old people. Like, oh, old people get cancer.
Right. And I really, and I'm not a celebrity, and I'm not anyone. So I made friends with Ethan Zahn, who was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma the same time I was. And everyone knows him as the guy who won Survivor with the curly hair. So he had, a different situation where he had an instant platform. So we became quick friends, and so it was different. I was just a regular guy who loves technology, and I used it to my advantage. I looked at all the tools we had. I said, we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got all these, things we can do. I'm got my cell phone at chemo, and I'm taking pictures, I'm shooting video, I'm uploading it to YouTube, all these things that people have never done before. So it helped. It was everything fell into place.
That is very cool. And if anybody wants to donate out there, any of our watchers, you can go to Livestrong and donate as you will.
They're a wonderful organization, and no, they originally reached out to me. They didn't want to partner or anything. They just asked me how I was feeling, and that meant a lot to me to ask me that.
That's really cool of them. Well, thank you so much for sharing not only the app of the week, Text Plus, but also sharing your story, because I think that's something that, like you said, a lot of people just kind of want to sweep under the rug, but it's good that people are out there talking about it. So thank you.
Exactly, and with Blame Drew's Cancer or Text Plus, I'm always open to feedback. My phone number is always out there. We use Get Satisfaction for all kinds of things, so I love feedback and listening to what people think, because why build things or do things just for yourself? It's going to be a failure.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you've built a community for everyone, even people who don't have the app. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Drew, once again, thank you so much for coming on last minute. Totally
thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good day, guys.
Drew Olanoff, everybody. And our app of the week.
Yes.
Text Plus.
That's pretty awesome.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was available. You could use it even if you did not have the app. Like
Yeah, sure, why not?
That's really,
That's
really cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, now I can take my little anything anybody's got here phone and just, run off and just go join a
Yeah, it was interesting. Do you find yourself texting more than you Twitter, or because it's funny, there are people that I will text and Twitter to, and I don't really think about, and I shift between them just seamlessly.
Yeah.
And I don't really think about them as different things. You guys
But the thing that kills me, though, is that if I'm not careful sometimes and I'm not thinking about it, and I'll get a DM from someone, and I'll just think, oh, I'm in, I'll think I'm in SMS, and I'll just send them a private message that'll go out to my public Twitter stream, and I'm like, facepalm. Oh, man. Every once in a while, okay.
We've all done the unintentional
just internet broadcast that you just really did not want to come out. Yeah, no, I understand that.
But, yeah, I definitely, I have a lot of people too that there's almost no rhyme or reason which one we use at any given time, and they'll send me a text message, and then 3 hours later they'll be DMing me.
Yeah, it's just whatever's out in front of it at the moment.
My friends are the wrong people. I have 4 real life friends who use Twitter, and then everyone else is people I've met through the internet or who follow from the show or things like that. And so for me, it's text messaging is solely family members, friends, everything. But anything mass that I want to get out because I have it linked to my Facebook, I just throw it up on Twitter. So for me, it's not necessarily a conversation tool as much as it is a broadcasting tool for Twitter, and then more of a private conversation for just text messaging. So I got to get some more tech-savvy friends. I live out in the middle of nowhere, so everyone's like, what's that Twitter? I don't understand. That's what the birds make.
That's what all the kids are doing these days.
That's what all those kids are doing these days. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I've said. Twitter, I don't understand. American Idol's on tonight. I love my stories. So, yeah, no, I live out in the middle of nowhere. Time to move to Los Angeles. Get some tech-savvy friends.
There you go.
Cool. All right. Want to do the news?
Let's do the news.
Let's do the news. Yeah, we have really high quality graphics.
I really like that one actually.
I do too. That's super old school.
That's great.
It's a bit Atari.
Yeah.
Mark, take it away.
Sure. Okay, so first story. Company, or I guess it's a product called Recognizer. So it's another one of these that, seriously, okay, startups, you can use vowels. It's okay. There won't be nobody will come and shoot you in your sleep.
They're all squatted.
You can use vowels.
All the domain names are squatted.
So, all vowels are now squatted.
Recognizer, which I don't like the name, but I actually really love the app. A company called The Astonishing Tribe, and it's not out yet, so it's still being developed.
Still being worked on.
The idea is that it's a augmented reality app. So I would hold my phone up, and it would recognize your face, and it would tell me, it would give me links to all the social networks that you're on. So your Facebook, your Twitter, your whatever,
Flickr, MySpace.
Flickr.
If you still use MySpace.
Not dead yet.
Some people do. It's not dead yet. Not dead yet.
It's not dead yet.
How does it do? Is there a database of faces that it's pulling from?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. You basically you sort of have to scan someone, and then you can link them. I think in your phone through the app, you say, okay, this person's face is so and so, and then based on what your phone knows about that person, what profiles you have linked, what Facebook they have, this, that, and the other thing. Then it goes into a database, and then if someone else who had not scanned their face but had the app then looked at them, the way that it sounds is that you would then see ding, 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 you'd see little icons for all the different social networking sites they were a part of, which that is some Minority Report stuff, and I love it.
Yeah, it's very Minority Report.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of the cooler augmented reality apps that I've heard of. Sort of didn't occur to me even something remotely like that. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's so obvious.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. You just hold the phone up to someone's face and you're like, oh, I'm going to follow you on Twitter, and you click there, and then you say, and I'm going to add you on Facebook, and then you click on the other
Except it's kind of creepy if you don't know me and I'm just sort of
right, and then you find
then I'm following, you don't want to be followed.
Or if you're really famous, that's a bad idea, because then someone could scan your face through a picture and then find all your social.
Oh, I wonder if it works with pictures.
That's an interesting
I imagine it probably
question.
does.
It's like, you know, you're like Angelina Jolie, you go
3D.
find her Twitter account.
Yeah, you're just like,
I'd be like, Angelina, I love you.
But I can imagine people freaking out, too, about privacy issues.
Oh,
if there is
absolutely.
some sort of central database, I mean, there has to be a way to opt out. And
Right.
Maybe,
Maybe
like
maybe
a do not call registry or do not recognize.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, do not recognize. That would be, they'd have to do something like that. I can't imagine. I don't know. Maybe they'll just make it phone only. So whatever you have scanned on your phone is what shows up.
Although that's
But
not
then
nearly
that
So
would
I can
really
still
limit
like
the
take a I could
That's
surreptitiously
true.
take a picture or again use a photo. So
That's true.
it doesn't really get them around that. So you're right. They're going to have some sort of do not recognize.
something.
Yeah. I'd
Database
be
of
curious
some
to hear
sort.
how they're going to address that. Yeah.
I'm very curious in following the development, and I saw that and I was just like,
But it is
wow, like
damn
that's
cool.
like that seems like a Pandora's box that's going to be open, like not necessarily in a bad way, but like this opens a whole new ball game in terms of social networking and being out on the street and integrating your whole like internet and I mean your social networking life into your real life. So that's just something that is, if they really pull it off, I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know when they're going to release it, but it sounds like it's coming soon. So we'll know very soon where this is all going.
Indeed, we shall.
Okay, next story. Surely a sign of the apocalypse. Farmville is now available on Android. In the first half of this year, Adobe will release, well, it will be available on Android. Will release Flash 10.1, which of course will make things like Farmville playable. So you can't get it right now, but they have a couple ROMs, basically modified versions of Android that are upgraded in some way because the operating system is open. Anyone can rewrite it and put little patches in and plugs and make it behave.
Yeah, if you root it, you can do whatever the heck you want. Yeah.
So, so basically, someone has done this just to get an idea of what it would look like, and they basically put Farmville on it. Why not?
I think Fish Sauce in our chat room pretty much says it all. Farmville owns me. Help. I think that pretty much. I think that pretty much is the sentiment of every person who's addicted to Farmville.
You know, I spent a little bit of time. It was one point where I was like contemplating doing some Facebook apps, and so I played Farmville. Like I literally got deep. I went into the little world. I know. It was a good 12-hour immersion of just like playing Farmville.
I'm a fish filler. I love the fish fill with the fish tank and everything.
Are you really? Do you play a lot?
Just that one. Well, I can't let them die. But I get the fish that you only have to feed every few days. I'm just like, oh.
The low maintenance fish.
The low maintenance.
That would be me too.
It's like you buying a snake. You only have to feed it once a week, and then then it does its own thing. Like that's a good kind of internet pet for me. So
absolutely.
Okay. So basically, the consensus was that it works. It was a little pokey and sluggish, but this is of course a ROM, so I mean it'll probably be optimized a lot better in the real version. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start seeing a lot of Flash applications coming to the Android. We're not going to see those on the iPhone, because we all know how Steve feels about Flash.
Oh
you
no,
like it.
bad. Yeah. Well, I heard something. Now of course I'm not going to remember if it was specifically Android. I want to say it was a specific phone or a specific thing that was running Flash, and it did not drain the battery nearly as much as people had. I think it was an Android phone, and they were saying it did not drain the battery nearly as much as people.
I think it was this demo, actually, because after the 10.1 demo came out, then there was a whole other series of sort of people who had micromanagingly looked at the battery life as the demo was running and thought that there was going to be a big concern for battery life. They said,
it's going to drain our battery life. We're only going to have an hour of phone time. And, if we're watching Flash stuff or playing Flash games, because it's such a resource hog. And then people were really surprised that it didn't drain the battery nearly as much as they thought it would, which is good.
Well, this one test apparently was on the Nexus 1 Snapdragon processor.
Right,
so
yeah.
It appeared to run fairly well on that, so.
There are a lot of things that run really well on that processor.
Yeah, 1 gigahertz, baby.
I know, it's
good stuff,
man.
Yeah, I don't buy the Flash apocalypse theory.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just don't. I mean, because you have the competition of hardware. You have the handset manufacturers and the chipset manufacturers competing each on the merits of their hardware. And if it is a problem now, it quickly won't be a problem, as we can see by the last show.
They will make it run.
Yeah. We actually one of the news items on the last show was that Android may be shooting itself in the foot by releasing stuff too fast. There's too many new, as soon as you buy a Nexus 1, there's a Nexus 2 or whatever the next thing is that comes out, and you're like, geez, I just bought this thing. What's going on?
I would almost worry more about sort of user interface issues with Flash too, as being sort of the first wave of things that are to be concerned with. Because when we saw Farmville in that Flash demo, it was very, you know, these apps aren't made for this screen size. They're not specifically made for touch, so you're not going to be able to go in there and immediately play all the Flash games that you're used to. But once developers have access to that and they start building Flash apps that are specifically tailored to a mobile device, I think we'll start seeing some cool stuff.
Yeah,
Flash.
Completely
well, and
agree.
especially with Air, when you're just going to be able to have it on any mobile device you have, as long as it supports Flash. Which, sorry, iPhone. Sorry, Charlie. Yep, it's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Okay, next story. Opera shows off Opera Mobile for Android. So Opera has submitted, well, first of all, Opera submitted their browser app to the iPhone App Store. Now, as you know, the App Store traditionally has not allowed other browsers other than Safari.
Right.
So this is, who knows what it's going to get through, but they seem fairly confident. But judging from past history, I don't think Apple's going to allow it. So I've heard the same thing about Firefox as well. So
well, especially after their recent, harbinger of doom swath cutting through the adult apps. I really, honestly, right now, I feel like they're just kind of a wild card in terms of what they're allowing, what they're not allowing. I mean,
no, it's inconsistent. That's been
yeah.
The one consistency is that they're inconsistent.
They're very inconsistent, and it's on whatever whim they feel like that day.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, oh, well, Playboy you can stay, but all these other apps, no, not good enough. Like, you're not rich enough to have an app in our catalog. You don't generate enough revenue for us is basically what they're saying.
Yeah.
So, which is really unfortunate, but say lovey.
Yeah. Well, so the flip side of the story is that Opera is they announced that they're basically providing handset manufacturers the ability to preload Opera onto any Android device. So already we're starting to see there are browser wars again on the Android, which is kind of cool because we haven't seen that. We haven't seen, once again, browsers will be forced to compete on merit of how fast they are, what things they support, et cetera. So
better for the consumer.
Exactly.
Any kind of war between developers, good for the consumer.
Yeah.
Bigger, faster, stronger mobile browsers is okay by, I'm sure, everybody.
Okay. Next story, actually you mentioned this already earlier, but there is a shipping Android tablet.
Woo!
Another sign of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's the iLet Mini HAL, and iLet is spelled I-L-E-T. It's basically, it's about 800. The resolution is 800 by 480, 7-inch LCD touchscreen. Let's see, got a bunch of specs here.
It supports a lot.
Yeah, it does support a lot. 16 hours of active battery life, 72 hours on standby.
Again, beats out the iPad.
Ocean Android OS. What is that? Is that a flavor? Is that like a ROM, a special? Do you know?
Ocean, I haven't heard of. They usually use like Eclair.
Yeah, I've heard of that too.
Pastry
so this must be a different
names.
ROM. Yeah, I haven't heard of this one. This is a new one.
Maybe they're using like the second half of the alphabet for tablets.
Oh, here we go. Wait, there's a note at the bottom. Ocean version of Android is based on Android 1.6.
Right.
Yeah. There you go.
So it's a mod on 1.6. Okay, interesting. So I guess we've already talked about this, so we'll just move on. But a few specs if you didn't hear that before. Next story: Nexus 1 versus the iPhone 3GS. Is the iPhone display better? Yeah, this story came out. They're basically, it's a bit technical, so I'll try to make it not so gibberishy. Let's see. Nexus 1 uses 16-bit color. This is the kind of color like 1998 era PCs had. The iPhone has 18-bit color with dithering, so it's basically emulating 24-bit color. And then they go on to basically have a couple different technical discussions about it. But what do you think? Is this just garbage? You've used both phones. You have both phones. I have both phones. Yeah. What do you think? I'll let you go first. I actually have a fairly strong opinion on this one.
I think you could argue the specs till you're blue in the face, but it's going to come down to personal opinion. I've heard a lot of people prefer one or the other. I personally think the Nexus 1 has a nicer screen.
Yeah.
It just pops when I look at it. And I mean, I think that's an artifact of the OLED. You get the stronger blacks, the true black.
Yeah, that was one of the points I brought was the OLED. The technology is very different.
And
yeah, by true black, actually, we should clarify that. So the Nexus One's OLED technology, black is not black light. It's actually truly empty and devoid of color. It is off. Right. So there is no light there. It's not black shaded light, which does exist.
Yeah.
So. Whereas
Super
the iPhone,
where
the iPhone actually emits black light for where black is, so the eye picks up on that. It's a sharper. The OLED is supposedly sharper.
Yeah.
Sharper.
Yeah. I mean, that said, the iPhone screen is certainly not hard on the eyes.
No, it's not bad.
If you're not looking at them side by side, you're going to be just as happy with one or the other. So, I mean, I think the difference is very marginal, but it's exactly the kind of thing that us geeks will
we'll zoom in on.
Argue till we're blue in the face on.
Yeah, the old iPhone versus Android thing as well. So.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Do you know which is better? Which has a better screen, the Droid or the Nexus One? Do you think?
I believe the Nexus One, because the Droid is not OLED screen, right? I think it's LCD.
It is.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this. When I started watching some TED videos on this, I got the app and started
nice.
In my free time, I'm like, oh, check this out.
Yeah.
And the video, I was stunned by the video on the Droid. It was really sharp compared to the iPhone.
Yeah,
there was a marked difference.
Very crisp.
And I didn't really notice the difference in the screen until I played video. You know, the actual the graphics and that sort of thing. It seemed like the same sort of experience to me for the most part.
Well, and when you have things like icons and stuff, I mean, something at 150 DPI is not going to be a market increase, especially since it's so small over something that's 72. So it really doesn't. Things like that really don't matter when you're just looking at an interface. I would imagine it's not really discernible. But like you said, video and anything that's like live streaming, I mean, you really are going to see a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Next story. AdMob did a survey about basically mobile phone handset devices, the smartphones, and they came up with some very interesting results. The first thing they asked was, would you recommend your device to someone? 91% of iPhone users would recommend their device. Only 84% of Android users would.
That's still pretty high, though.
It is still pretty high.
84% for phones across all carriers, I think, is really high. Because here's the thing, with the iPhone, it's one phone. And the person who's chosen an iPhone is going to love that iPhone. Like, almost everybody I know has an iPhone who picked it out and said, this is what I want in a smartphone, loves it. It does exactly what they need it to do. And so I think that those numbers are, important, but I also think that on that same note, when you've got however many phones, there's 60,000 handsets a day that they're pumping out, that have Android on them, I mean, and they're all different kinds on all different carriers. I think you're definitely going to see a drop in approval rating on them.
Okay, here's another thing that plays into this. 73% of Android users are male, leading you to possibly call it "and dude."
Yeah.
But I mean that is interesting though. It's definitely a dude phone. The numbers basically say that it is.
Which maybe
so that may be why they're a little bit more critical. They're geeks. Right? I would say that, the men tend to be geekier for the most part, present company excluded. And I mean that in the good way.
Well, the percentage of extremely tech-savvy women out there is still lower than extremely tech-savvy. We're catching up. But
it's gotten a lot better.
I mean, it's gotten a lot better, but I mean, it's still, to some extent, very true. So
we could also look at something like what Verizon did in terms of the marketing campaign that they ran for the Droid, which was very much focusing on, here's this masculine device. It can crush rocks. I mean, they really went all out for this very anti-iPhone. Oh, the iPhone's a little girly ballet dancer, and the Droid does, it's very functional, very marketed towards a male demographic, and then also
the way it looks,
and the way it looks, it's very.
It's a bulky, manly.
It's chunky.
It's a hardy phone.
It's a hardy phone.
You could hammer a nail into the wall with that thing. It's sturdy.
I'm the man your man can smell like. Exactly. If only he used an Android iPhone.
Exactly.
I'm on a horse.
Yes.
Exactly.
I forgot the punchline. Yeah. I'm on a horse. So yeah, I mean, and the other interesting thing that came out of it. Well, actually, there's a couple more interesting stats. I'll read them. Only 6% of Android users plan to pick up an iPad. So there is definite iPad hatred among Android users. So
interesting. Do they have the stat on how many iPhone owners would be? Because that would be an interesting comparison.
No.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if people feel like they already have a mobile device with the iPhone.
Yeah, that's a good. Actually, would be a very interesting point.
Interested in getting this sort of new form factor or a renaissance of an older form factor. Yeah.
Well, it does say so. A couple of stats, real quick. 24% of Android users are under age 25. So, I guess I mean
quarter of the younger
75%, 76% are over 25. I guess that would mean. Android users spend 80 minutes a day using apps. So I don't know what the corollary is on the iPhone, but I would suspect that it's less. I suspect that the actual use of apps on the Android device is a lot higher, I would think. I don't really have any reason for thinking that. I don't have any proof of that, but I would guess that.
Although there is a larger app install base for the iPhone, which is one of the things people always trot out. Oh,
that's not going to last long, though.
Yeah, over time, that gap is going to very quickly.
We looked at those trends in an earlier show, and it was clear that the acceleration was there on the Android side. That within a year, probably, it's going to catch up and be fairly equivalent. Everyone's doing Android versions of their apps. It's just the way it's going, and especially when Flash support comes.
Yeah.
Now suddenly you can use Flash and you can use Air to make Android apps.
Right.
And that's something that I don't know what Apple's going to do about that.
The floodgates will open.
Yeah. That's not good for Apple.
Apple can't keep their thumb in the dam anymore.
So people will just be able to port their existing Flash and Air apps over to Android very easily.
Yeah.
So actually, the minute that happens, Android's ahead. I mean, that second.
It's just going to be, that's going to be a huge, huge game. I hate throwing around the word game changer right now because of Avatar.
Yeah.
I've heard it so much. I'm just like, oh, game changer. Yeah. But I really think that's going to be a huge game changer in terms of, I mean, if Air works the way that they're intending it to work, it will change the landscape, as it were. If we're talking about a Western here where two cowboys are staring each other down, it's going to change the landscape. So.
Okay, so here's the flip side of this story. The Motorola Devour. Hey, ladies, your droid is here.
Yep.
That was basically the
very true.
We've seen it. It's a very pretty phone.
It's pretty.
It's pretty. It's very nice.
Sleek and it's pretty.
It's sort of silver. It's got like a nice. It's got an Apple-esque. Actually, it's not really Apple-ish. It's something else.
It's just got that like.
It's elegant.
It's a little softer than something like the Droid. It's a little curvier.
Yeah.
So it's very sexy. I really like it. At first when I saw like early pictures of it, I was like, oh, that phone's kind of ugly. But then I saw it and I was like, oh, that's not bad at all. That's actually pretty good.
Although I just saw, I think it was Gizmodo's review of the device.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, the essence is, what have you done with my droid?
Yeah, exactly. But I bet a guy reviewed it. He's like, what have you done with my man machine? You've turned it into a lady phone.
Well, okay, so here's something that's interesting. So Moto Blur, which is Motorola's special UI, is what's running on the Devour.
Yes.
Now, do you know what that is? I don't know what that is. Is that a special desktop or UI?
It's their
for the operating system
user interface, equivalent to sort of what HTC has done with their Sense UI, which they kind of overlay on top of Android. Samsung has a version too. They call it TouchWiz. And Motorola's version is very much focused on aggregating your social networking.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool, actually. If you add in your Twitter and Facebook credentials and so on, it'll do its best effort to sort of bring up which social incoming pings are most important to you, which is kind of a cool theme for a customization, I think. So a lot of people seem to really like it.
Well, I mean, I like this idea because if it's what I haven't seen it yet, but if it's what I'm picturing in my head, it's the very thing I've been complaining about on the Android device versus the iPhone. The iPhone, everything is organized and it feels slick and produced, and I feel like I could hand it to my grandmother and she wouldn't be confused, terribly confused by it. Whereas if I threw it into the Android universe, it would be completely confused. The way the apps load. We always talk about this every show. It looks like Java used to. When it's like, oh, I got to access this device, it looks like something went wrong. There's a bunch of warnings that pop up when you install an app, which is
like Vista and its earlier.
So it seems like Android needs.
Shutter.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it seems like Android needs to be better produced at the UI level. It needs to be a layer on top of it that abstracts Android itself from the consumer, from most consumers.
I think when you first boot up an Android device, you should be given a quiz, and based on technology, and then whatever, it's like choose your adventure. It's like, what would happen if this happened? Do you understand what this is? And it's like A, B, C, D. And then you go through the quiz, and then it says, okay, this is the level of Android we're going to give you. Like beginner Android, which won't give you all those crazy error messages and all that stuff. And it's just very basic, like straightforward. Like we're not going to, we'll let you know if it's something malicious. Like we'll handle it. And then
don't worry about it.
And then on the other flip side of that, they go, okay, you're obviously extremely tech savvy. We're going to go ahead and let you just take the phone and do what you want with it.
It would be like difficulty levels for video games.
Like if you pass with 100%, it automatically roots your phone.
Just casual.
Just auto roots. It's like, oh wow, you are so set with this phone. Like we're just going to go ahead and root it for you.
I think that goes back sort of full circle to the earlier point about would you recommend this phone? I think that's part of the difference too. Whereas I would feel totally comfortable recommending my iPhone to anyone, whether they're tech savvy or not. Whereas I would hesitate a little bit more to recommend an Android to someone who's not really a tech person, although it's getting a lot closer. It's definitely getting a lot closer.
Yeah. There is a learning curve there that the iPhone doesn't have. So, I mean, you can just pick one up and use it. So, and with Android, there's a little bit of a ramp there. When you first start using it, I know when I had tried out the Hero for the first time, I was like, I'm so confused. Like, and I know I probably sound ridiculous to everybody. I'm sorry, everybody. I can be very, very stupid sometimes. And but yeah, I was just like, the widgets thing was like very foreign to me, and because I had grown so accustomed to my iTouch, I was just like, oh, it's all just one thing at a time.
Try to do the swipe and
swipe, exactly.
It didn't pinch. You're like, what's going on?
I'm like, I'm so confused.
It doesn't work.
This is a broken phone. And so, but no, that's but I think a lot of people, especially people who are not tech savvy, it would take them longer to understand that they're not exactly the same. The way that the interfaces work are not the same.
You need to bring a little bit more to the table to get the most out of an Android device, whereas the iPhone, as most Apple products are designed to do, just works right out of the box.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, here's something Apple won't like. Android phone prices are dropping faster than expected. So the prices for basically the competition for orders from handset manufacturers in Taiwan and China are fierce. They're fiercer than they thought. So the prices are going down.
Good.
Is it? I mean, well, here's the thing. This is clearly got to be cutting into the profit margins of the handset hardware manufacturers. It's good for the consumer. But is this actually a good thing for the industry overall, do you think? I mean, the speed with which it's dropping.
I'm curious.
Is there such a thing as price dropping too fast?
Too fast, yeah.
Probably not. I mean, they're not going to be, they've had all their biz dev people crunching those numbers to make sure that it's not going too fast. I think, they want to increase the install base, and as that happens, as the price goes lower, more people are going to consider it. There are certainly a lot of people out there who aren't willing to pay $249 for a phone, but once you get down to that, like you were saying earlier, that magic sort of price point, $199,
like
there's
right
a psychological effect that
It's
happens.
less than $200. Like,
right.
I can afford that.
Yeah.
That's like, it's like I can just put $50 away every couple paychecks.
Yeah.
I think one of the things when we talked about last week, the influx of new devices coming out, I find it interesting that this article is now coming out because instead of a phone coming out like I'm trying to think of the iPhone is a good example, and I hate to go back to the iPhone, but the price of that never really went down because there was never a sequel, so to speak, until the 3GS came out, and over time I'd imagine the user market will get saturated to a point where you can't really do much more. And I think in terms of Android, they're putting out so many phones and so often that they're sort of erasing that time frame of a phone being free with contract. Like they're trying to get rid of that time frame where they're like, now we don't have to offer phones for free with contract, or the 2-for-1 with Verizon. Like it's just you buy the phone and 4 months later there's going to be a better one, so we're not going to offer this for free anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like yeah. I definitely think that that's sort of their game plan in terms of selling units. And then, and again, fish sauce on our chat room says, in this economy, low price is good. And I agree. I absolutely agree with that. When you have lower prices, more people are buying your phones.
We have to remember, too, that it's a different ecosystem than the Apple ecosystem, where it's one company selling one flavor, whereas here we've got a number of different manufacturers making Android phones, and they're competing with each other. It's not like they're all, let's join hands and kumbaya try to raise the boat of Android.
I want to sell as many units as I can.
It's a business, and they have to make their money. So Motorola wants to sell more handsets than HTC, and vice versa. And so we're going to see a lot more.
Baskin Robbins of cell phones. 31 flavors for 31 people.
I like it. It's a good analogy.
All right. So next story. Mixer. This is from a company called Mixer, M-Y-X-E-R.
I love Mixer, by the way.
That's good.
Yes, they do have an E.
Yes, yeah, there's one vowel
Thank
there.
God someone used an E.
Thank God for vowels.
I'm getting so tired of this. Jeez. Anyway, so basically they did another survey, and and they found that, and this is interesting, there is a geographic difference between iPhone and Android users as well. There are actually 8 states in which Android use outpaced iPhone use. And then there's also several swing states where the difference in users is less than 10%. And these states, now can you guess what region of the country is more prone to use Android?
I would guess the West Coast. That's my guess.
Good guess, but you'd be incorrect. It's actually the Bible Belt, really.
It is.
It's the Midwest.
Really? Yeah. They're picking up Android?
Yeah, the theory behind it is that the reason for it is because of AT&T. If you take a look at AT&T's coverage map,
it's blank.
You've seen the commercials, right? You see blue around the edges and look at the big hole in the middle. Isn't that interesting?
Of course.
So basically, AT&T is just terrible in the Midwest, and that's why people are going for the thing that looks like an iPhone. Yeah. But it works.
Well, I mean, I would never wish Edge on my worst enemy, so I understand. I get it. So.
Interesting. AT&T can't be too happy about that.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure they are less than thrilled.
They don't seem to acknowledge the fact that their network just sucks.
Everyone
says it. It's a joke now.
Like Domino's Pizza even came out and was like, we know our pizza was terrible, and so we remade it. Like, we have totally new pizza. And just come out and be like, yep, it's bad. Like, we know. It's really terrible.
Yeah, they just don't acknowledge it at all.
Admit your faults. It makes you look like a better person.
Yeah, anyway, enough about AT&T. We beat on them every show.
I know.
I have to get a few punches in there before the show's over, I guess. Okay, next story. I want to know how they did this. I don't know how they did this. So if you guys have any insight, Quake 3 on Android in arena mode. So forget Farmville. We can actually play Quake, and the way that they basically go through the steps for how you do it, and the way they describe it is you need the original Quake 3 CD.
You need the game files,
yes,
right? You
basically need the game files, or you need to download them from somewhere. So this is not like an Android version of Quake somehow. It's actually the old Quake that runs on a PC.
Somehow running on this.
Somehow ported and running on the Android device. But I'm not sure how they did it.
Well, and it's not only just Quake; it's Quake 3, which is like but I would imagine I've been playing around with Scum VM. I'm trying to get them on as one of our apps of the week. And they basically.
What is that, first of all?
It's a oh gosh, now I'm going to totally botch the name, but it's basically almost an emulator.
So it's a virtual machine.
It's an emulator, and it's the programming language that was made. Maniac Mansion, like all these really great old LucasArts games. Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max, like King's Quest. I mean, like the older King's Quest and stuff. And what they've done on all platforms, they have one on Android, they've got iPhone, WebOS. I mean, they're on it, and it's script creation utility for Maniac Mansion Virtual Machine. So that's Scum VM, and it's basically it's like an emulator, but you have to have the game files to run the game. So you can add the game with your game files. Like right now, I've been playing The Seventh Guest by Trilobite, so like kicking it back old school. I've been doing that on my Palm Pre, and so but I would imagine it's the same type of thing where you have some kind of OpenGL, and you're having to port in all of the game files.
Yeah.
But the processors now on phones are
like PCs.
Are like old PCs.
Yeah.
So we're now seeing more and more games being run as phones get more and more advanced. So I would imagine that even more so in the next year, I think we're going to see a lot more of like not so much old games. Like I'm a big, like I said, I'm big like Day of the Tentacle, 1988.
Yeah.
You know? But I think we're going to be seeing like Quake 3, maybe Half-Life. You know, things that are not necessarily, cool. Not necessarily really old, but definitely, you know, a little older. But I think it's really going to start speeding up, accelerating in terms of how many things are available, how many games.
But I still don't know how they did it. I mean, they basically must run a Windows or
some kind of engine
or DOS emulator.
Probably DOS emulator.
Yeah.
I think ScumVM runs with a DOS emulator of some kind.
I think a DOS emulator is running on Android devices. That's pretty interesting.
It's the apocalypse all over again.
I know.
It's coming.
The app apocalypse.
The app apocalypse.
But I'm bummed.
Just like Game Changer. It's just like Game Changer. Everybody likes throwing apocalypse on the end of like everything.
Well,
Snowpocalypse.
The snowpocalypse.
It's the
apocalypse.
apocalypse.
Yeah, saying that on Twitter. So, all right, final story. Canada to finally get paid apps in the Android market. Surprisingly, the Android market doesn't currently support paid apps. First of all, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
But what is the scoop there? Do you know?
You have to go through all kinds of hurdles and loops, and you have
it's
to
a legal thing?
deal with carriers and so on to get.
Is it a legal thing or is it a contractual carrier thing?
Probably both.
Probably both.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
it takes time to set up those relationships and get those agreements in place, and I imagine they're using the same technology. I don't think it's a technology issue. So I think it's a legal and.
Can you get you can get iPhone apps, right? Paid iPhone apps in Canada?
I believe so.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think you can.
But I think it took a while. And even like Palm is dealing with this with WebOS. You can't get the UK does not have paid apps, and it's been 6, 7 something months since the App Store opened. Paid apps came into the App Store for Palm. So I mean, I think you're definitely on the right track about it being about carriers and legal issues and financial, currency conversions and things like that. I definitely think that's because then they have to get all of these developers paid. Their percentage. So I think that's sort of the big linchpin.
And in general, the whole App Store phenomenon is still a very relatively new thing in the mobile world, whereas it used to be very much carriers would control exactly what you could put on your phone, even to some extent going against the manufacturer's wishes. And all of a sudden, Apple comes in, ignites this App Store phenomenon that everyone else has followed, but it's a matter of you have to talk to each carrier in each country and set up those agreements and get it through. So it takes a while.
So if Apple didn't kick the door down, we probably wouldn't have anything.
We'd still be in the dark ages.
Yeah. They were definitely the pioneer of the app trail.
So we actually have to thank AT&T for something?
No, just Apple. AT&T just gave us the
AT&T would have to have gone along with it.
So they would have found someone else.
They had to grudgingly agree.
Yeah, Apple would have found someone else. So, but no, I definitely think. I mean, again, giving credit where credit's due. Like you said, if we didn't have the iPhone, I don't think any of this would be even close to happening in terms of open source, like how open our the Android market is and everything. So.
I mean, we saw, too, at Mobile World Congress, a bunch of carriers announced a plan to launch their own app store, to actually band together and launch their own version, which speaks to that.
AT&T.
Including AT&T, which speaks to their desire to get back a little bit more control over what's going on their handsets, whereas they used to enjoy full control. Now they've sort of had to concede some of that control to Apple and now Android and everyone else who has their app stores online too, Windows Mobile, as sucky as it is, and
it might get better with Windows Mobile 7.
I hope so.
It looks good.
It does. It does look pretty good.
And I stand corrected. Paul Smurden on our chat room has said Canada has had paid apps since day one on the iPhone. So
excellent.
Yeah, interesting to note. Very interesting. Well, I think that's all. We have this week.
That's it.
So, Barb Dybwad, I would love to just thank you from the bottom of my blackened soul for coming on to This Week in Android, and I mean, really great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Barb Dybwad. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm like flustered. I'm like, oh, Sienna, show. I can't believe it. It ends so fast every week.
It does.
I feel like
we're
it's
actually over in an hour too.
I know. I feel like it flies by.
We're starting to turn into Cal Canis and run our shows hour and a half. Soon it'll be 2 hours.
Peter Jackson will be
here at 8 p.m. There's one more app we have to talk about.
Fish Sauce is dying for me to say Man Machine. So Man Machine, Fish Sauce, Man Machine.
Oh, actually, we should plug some of the other shows before we go too. So we run a couple other shows for those people who just watched the show and don't know about the other ones. There's This Week in Cloud Computing, This Week in Startups, which precedes this show. Most people know that because that's Jason Calacanis' show. We also do This Week in Twitter, which filmed this morning at 11 or so. This Week in Cloud Computing, it runs and it's thisweekincloudcomputing.com. That's on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. So
and
Amanda Coulong hosts that one.
Great.
She's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, from TechZulu. She's really great.
Awesome.
So I'll run through it one more time since I got flustered. Barb Dybwad from Mashable, thank you so much for coming on and providing such fantastic insights into your thoughts on Android and where it's going and where it's been. No problem. And I'd also like to thank Text Plus. Goji, thank you so much for being our app of the week, and Drew Olanoff for showing us and explaining to us how Text Plus works and telling us a little bit about his personal journey as an internet meme. And as always, thank you so much, Mark Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Barb, do you have a Twitter?
I do. It's Dr. Paradox. That's spelled out DoctorParadox.
Dr. Paradox. You can find Mark Jeffrey at Mark Jeffrey.
Yeah, I don't have a cool superhero name like you, unfortunately, but I'll make it with my own name. You
can find Drew Olanoff at That Drew on Twitter, and that Drew. And and then you can also find me, Ashley Esqueda, on as Heartless Jez, Jez. So come find us on Twitter. Join the conversation with us. Let's talk about Android. And if you have any nominations for App of the Week, or if you have any ideas for guests, any ideas, we're open to feedback. So
Absolutely.
Send it on over. We want to hear it. But this has been This Week in Android. I'm your host, Ashley Esqueda, and we will see you next week.